Good morning. It is Thursday, October 6th. Thank you so much for joining us for this special Pink Week in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'm Jessica Lovell. Coming up today on the Morning Medical Update. Hair today, gone tomorrow. This breast cancer survivor is putting into words the impact cancer and losing her hair had on her life, plus the role her faith and the University of Kansas Cancer Center had in her healing. We know the COVID can mutate. Now a warning from the nation's top leader in the virus about what is to come this winter. Thank you so much for joining us here on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. We are live inside the Dulcie Simons Family Broadcast Studio. First, a devastating breast cancer diagnosis, then the reality. What happens to my hair? Breast cancer survivor and author Cami Crank joins us to talk about her book, Inspiring Hope in Other Women, and talking about what's often not talked about during the cancer journey. Cami is here with us in studio this morning, along with Dr. James Butterworth, her plastic surgeon, and also with us virtually is Sabrina Corintager. She's a clinical nurse coordinator for the Lymphedema Prevention Clinic. You helped care and treat Cami, and so we're going to talk a little bit about how you made your way into her book as well. How are you both today?
Doing great.
Good. Good to see you, Sabrina. Thank you. Good to see you. And of course, we love getting your questions, so please send those in on the links there on your screen. And as always, you can put them in the chat below. We will get to those questions here in just a bit. We do want to let you know, though, that we will be showing some approved photos that Cami sent us to share with you, the audience, about her breast reconstruction. So we just wanted to let you know about those photos coming up here in just a moment. But Cami, hair today, gone tomorrow. It's the name of your book. Why was it so important for you to document this story and this journey that you've been on?
Well, when I first was diagnosed in 2015 and made it all through treatment, I started writing and writing about all the things that cancer did to me, all that I lost, and got it about ready to send a publication, and it was in the last stages, and come to find out, my cancer had metastasized, and now it was terminal, stage 4, thinking maybe 3 to 4 years to live. And my son, who helped me with the book a lot, said, "Mom, now you need 2 more chapters. One on how you found it metastasized and how, now what?" And so I started writing again. And then as I was writing those 2 other chapters, things came to me to add to the previous 10. And then I got to seeing all that I had gained through it and all the good that came from it.
You said there was a lot of light in the darkness.
That's right.
And you had a story to share. We often talk about the scary parts of the diagnosis of cancer. We've heard those stories, but sometimes we forget to mention the reality of hair loss and body changes. In fact, one of the first questions that you asked your doctor was, should I cancel my hair appointment next week to get highlighted? And you kind of giggle as if that's not something women think about, because we certainly do. I mean, I'll cancel almost any appointment but my hair appointment, Candy. Right. So I get it. You don't get it, Dr. Butterworth. I know, but trust me, it's very important. Surprisingly, didn't your doctor say to go ahead and keep it to stay normal?
Yeah, she did. I couldn't. My husband said later, that was so funny you asked her that. But all my doctors and providers at KU they've become like my friends.
They have. So. I hear that story a lot too. But back to hair, Cami, one of the quotes in your book was, "I always thought that my hair was my best feature. Often mere strangers would stop me and tell me how pretty my hair was. My hair was my crown." I mean, it's a safety net for some women. It's their identity, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So to be faced with something, we think that's very trivial, our hair, with something, combined with something so serious, but kind of how did you grapple with that?
Honestly, when I got my diagnosis and my daughter and my husband were sitting there with me, and my breast surgeon said, "You will lose your breast and you will lose your hair." And losing my hair, that was much harder to take.
It was. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I don't know. I guess because I guess it was my best feature. That's what I always thought. My hair was my best feature. And And then, you know, it's always out there, you know, and your
Yeah.
breasts, it's easy to disguise, I guess, but I don't know, it's just.
But I like hearing you say that really candidly, because it's something that, you know, a lot of women want to talk about, the health part of it and not the aesthetic part. And it's all part of how we feel. So Cami, you were diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in 2015. You underwent chemo, a double mastectomy. You were very open about documenting this in your book. And I know we have some photos. Again, these are the photos that you wanted to share. And that's why I want to bring in Dr. Butterworth about the type of reconstruction that she had. It's called DIEP, as in DIEP. Tell us what that means and how it differs from other options that women are given at the beginning of their diagnosis.
Sure. So a DIEP stands for the blood vessels that supply the blood flow to the tissue, and it stands for deep inferior epigastric artery flap. Perforator artery flap, which is why people don't typically say the whole thing, and it's shortened to
thank you for
anagram of DIEP. And it's a way of doing breast reconstruction where you're transplanting one's own tissue to reconstruct breasts, as opposed to using foreign objects like implants.
So where is that tissue coming from?
That tissue comes from the fat in the skin of the lower abdomen or the belly, so the tissue that sits below the belly button and above what one would think of as a C-section scar for those patients that have gone through C-sections before.
So Cami, when you heard this was an option, what were your thoughts?
Oh, wow. So actually, I first heard about it at the Gilda House, went there for a little workshop. My little sister happened to be in town. And again, this is very early in the diagnosis staging. And actually, Sabrina, you were there, and your husband. I remember seeing you both. I didn't get to meet with you personally, and they talked about all the options, and they mentioned this one, and it was new to me in the fact that no longer did they cut through the skin of the muscle, like completely. I still wanted my tummy muscle, and so I thought, wow, that's intriguing.
Can we see those photos? Because I want to see where they took it out of your stomach.
Okay.
And
And so I was very intrigued about it, and then my breast surgeon referred me to Dr. Butterworth, and he went over it many times, explained it many times. I almost backed out, and he encouraged me again that he thought I would really be pleased, and I was. Did a great job.
What would have been her other options, though?
So you can do breast reconstructions with implants, which is typically the way that, I'd say nationally, we think somewhere between about 60 to 70% of women undergo implant-based reconstructions, as opposed to what we call autologous tissue reconstruction, or using your own tissue. So somewhere about 30 to 40% of patients end up choosing to use their own tissue.
And what's the difference, and pardon me for asking, difference between augmentation and the reconstruction? What's the actual physical difference?
Good question. So an augmentation is adding typically an implant or something to a breast that's there. So in that sense, the breast isn't being removed, as opposed to, as what happened in Cami's case in a mastectomy for breast cancer. The breast gland is removed. Oftentimes the skin is preserved because that's not a cancerogenic tissue when we're talking about breast cancer. And then what you have to do is you have to start from the ground up and rebuild the breast in that way, as opposed to basically putting an implant or putting tissue underneath the breast that remains, which is what an augmentation is, which is a much simpler operation to get over.
So, Cami, the dedication of your book, and by the way, if you're just joining us, Cami is the author of Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow. You can get it on Amazon. You said in it, you dedicated it for my new friend who have found yourself at a club you didn't choose to join. Please, please know there is hope. What were you hoping this overall impact would be to share these stories and be really, really open about it?
Well, my biggest hope is that they would look to God and find strength in the Scripture. There is so much hope when you first get this diagnosis. You're devastated, and it's so there's several kinds of cancer, but breast cancer is so personal, and it just, there's things that you go through that you don't know who to talk about, and I would scour the library for books. I wanted to talk to someone who had gone through it more specifically, and I thought, I'm going to write a book that I wish I could have found and read when I went through this. Something that included the TMI, the too much information, the questions you want to ask, but you don't know who to ask.
Yeah, things that, like you said, you can Google a lot when it comes to breast cancer, but knowing those personal stories, the ins and outs, the things that we don't talk about, they're really important.
And that someone came through it. You see them on the other side.
Exactly. That is what you are here to tell us. I want to get to Sabrina, and you're part of this because one of the things that, Dr. Butterworth, you were talking about this too, the coolest part of her book is and if you could see it, she puts in here this cancer timeline, and it is day by day, date by date, page by page of every single appointment, that everything down to when you started taking a medication, when you had a checkup, when you had a brain CT scan, your checkup with your plastic surgeon. It's all documented here to really show in real time what this has looked like for you. And I know one of those appointments was with the Lymphedema Prevention Center, our program here that Sabrina Correntager is a nurse, and she was part of monitoring you to make sure you don't get lymphedema, and if you do, what those next steps would be. So Sabrina, good morning. Tell us about your part in her story, and just kind of what do you remember about caring for it and spending time with Cammie?
So one of the first things Cammie mentioned was the personal relationship she's established with all of us. We meet with patients very early on in their diagnosis. We're not kind of a hidden thing. One of the goals of prevention is to meet with patients before anything could even happen, so that they know who we are, they know what the risks are, and they know what we're going to do if things start to happen. Almost a decade ago, we started using advanced technology to go and essentially seek out if a patient's having early indicators of lymphedema. With Cammie, in her book, she mentions some of the adventures that happened that don't always happen to other patients, in terms of there was a question about, was she developing some lymphedema? Due to the use of our technology and us following her closely in the clinic, we were able to determine that it wasn't, which gave her a great peace of mind. We're actually making strides about trying to seek out people who are having those early indicators before they even develop it. So we'll monitor her through the continuum. She still continues to come and see me, which is a highlight. I love having long-term patients. That helps to create this person. Well as if patients are having questions about, is this normal, is this not normal, we're always available for them because we've established such a personal relationship.
So how long are you monitoring her for? Is this for you said long term?
That's a great question. One of the beauties of our program is we're really able to tailor it to what is the patient needing. Some of our patients only need a few years. Someone like Cammie, I'm going to continue to see along the continuum. I've been seeing her since 2015, and I have absolutely no indications that I won't continue to see her. So we really make a personalized plan for these patients based on what's in their best interest. Are they needing a little more frequency of visits? Are they needing less? Some patients we see once a year. Others we discharge after a few years. It depends upon what their medical needs are and what their personal needs and level of comfort with the development of lymphedema are, and then what we see clinically in them.
So Sabrina, why do some women get lymphedema? Are there some people who are more prone to it than others?
That's a really great question. One of the things that the University of Kansas Cancer Center is dedicated to is we're trying to find those key indicators. We're making some great strides. We've published some papers and we have more coming out. We know that there are certain things that do make somebody more susceptible, whether it be the use of some chemotherapy drugs such as taxane, how many lymph nodes are removed, some other factors. So that's where I mentioned we're really able to make a specialized plan for a patient based on what we see with them clinically. We don't have 100% the answers, but we're pretty darn close as to being able to say this person's pretty low risk or this one's much higher risk. And those that are higher risk, we monitor very, very closely.
Take a quick moment to check in with Medical Director of Infection Prevention and Control, Dr. Dana Hawkinson, getting our COVID count. Good morning to you.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, right now we have 32 active infections in the hospital with 3 in the ICU and still 1 on the ventilator, 17 in that recovery period as well. So still kind of staying high, in that low 30s, and just kind of waiting to see, cases are going down, hospitalizations still going down. Booster uptake, however, around the nation is quite low. But we know boosters can help reduce your risk of that severe disease, and I think that's important, especially for those at highest risk, especially those in the older age brackets and with other comorbidities.
Dr. Hawkinson,
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci says another COVID-19 variant could emerge this winter. What is he talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are always on the lookout for new variants. If that's one thing that has proven to be true since the pandemic began, is that these variants do arise, and they fill in those vacuums of those places where there is immunity to other variants or other isolates of the virus. Mostly it is determined by that spike protein in your antibodies or lack thereof antibodies to that specific spike. But overall, what we also have continued to see is that our preventive measures and our treatment measures continue to work, and I think that is what we need to count on. And so prevention, of course, is being up to date with your vaccination. And then, of course, we have the treatment, so it's getting tested early if you have symptoms. Getting on Paxlovid. As of yet, Paxlovid has not, we haven't seen any resistance for that antiviral, and so that is very good. It will work, but again, also, especially if you are in those higher risk groups, it is important to get tested early and get treated.
This week, Wyandotte County announced its first case of monkeypox. The CDC says that monkeypox isn't going away anytime soon, even with a vaccine. So what does that mean?
Well, what we do know is the epidemiologic case counts have decreased steadily for the past few weeks, so that is good news. We know that it is very difficult to get monkeypox. It is really mostly, that intentional contact, that close contact. But we also have very good evidence now. I think it was yesterday in the MMWR, or this week, the publication from the CDC showed that those people that had received at least one dose of the Jynneos vaccine against monkeypox were 14 times less likely to get monkeypox if exposed. So we have good preventive measures for that as well. But it's also continuing that education and that information program to let those groups at highest risk know and understand that. But I think overall we should be quite happy that the cases around the United States are decreasing.
Dr. Hawkinson, thank you so much. Do we have any reporters on the line today? Well, let's get to our community then. And I have a question, kind of a double question from Joellen and Andrea. Andrea's asking Dr. Butterworth, is reconstruction, is that part just merely cosmetic? Are there any health benefits to recreating that tissue? And Joellen's just asking, what about people who just choose not to do the reconstruction?
Yeah, there is multiple options for patients undergoing mastectomies, and part of our aim is to provide the information, prioritize what the treatment plan is, and as we talk about in medicine, have shared decision making. So it's important for the patients to have their own input as to what goes on during the course of their journey, because it is going to be a long journey. For some patients, their identities, be it whether it's physical, emotional, psychosexual, are not as tied to having breasts or having something that is recreated in the form of breast reconstruction. And so as a result of that, some women will choose just to have the mastectomies and have nothing. We definitely know that there are a lot of benefits to undergoing breast reconstruction from all of the things that I just mentioned in terms of a mental standpoint, an emotional standpoint, a psychological standpoint. And so it really boils down to the priorities and what the end goals are of each individual patient.
And there's no wrong answer.
And there's no wrong answer. That's exactly right.
Cammie, how did it feel after your reconstruction? You documented it in the photos that we showed earlier, if we could pull those up, where you went from being diagnosed and then having your breasts removed through the mastectomy, and now they're back. They're not what you were born with, what the good Lord gave you, but they're back, and you felt good, right?
I did, yes. When coming out of the mastectomy, which is nice, the plastic surgeon works with the breast surgeon, and you come out with expanders. So you come out with something, and I would call them my breast mounds, and then we'd go and we'd expand those as we're saving the skin before I go through radiation. And at some point in there, I don't know exactly when, I started referring them again to my breasts. So that was kind of like, now they were my breasts.
Mine again. They were mine again. That's really powerful, right, Dr. Butterworth? Like you said, just regaining that part of you that you feel you've lost. You're trying to you're in that position where you're giving someone something back.
Right.
That's a big responsibility.
Yes, it's a huge responsibility, and it's a great way to develop relationships with your patients and long-standing relationships with your patients.
Lots to celebrate, and same with you, Sabrina, as well. A question from Tamika is lymphedema hereditary? So if my mother had it, and then I get breast cancer, is it hereditary? You smile because I know there's a lot we still don't know, but what do we know about that?
So I love that question. It's one actually I get frequently, and the answer is no. And the way that I let patients know that it is not, the lymph nodes are a resource in your body. Some things are genetic based on that, but lymphedema simply happens because we've removed a part of your body that had a job. And how does the body respond? And everybody is a little bit different. And I have worked with third and fourth generation people that have breast cancer, and there is absolutely no familiar, meaning no genetic component to whether you develop lymphedema or not. It is simply whether or not the body is able to compensate and take over for what it's missing that was removed during your cancer journey. And so it's a great question. I actually get it frequently, but the answer is no. That we do know definitively.
Very good. Isaac wants to know what the potential for using proton therapy to treat breast cancer. We know it's used for prostate cancer, pediatric cancer. We have our proton therapy center here at the health system. But what do we know about that even down the road?
Sabrina, do you?
And if you don't know, that's
I
okay
have to
too.
say that may be a little out of our lane.
And that's okay. We'll have to get Dr. Chen on here.
Probably would be better for the radiation oncologist to answer that.
Yeah, it's a great question though.
Yeah,
I
am sure that there is a role for it, but the details of it would be best served by an expert.
Okay, I will take that one off the table for you. Like I said, you're very specified in what you know, and it's a lot. So Michelle wants to know, how to talk about your nutrition during chemo. How did you,
My
nutrition, did you,
okay.
just throughout your whole diagnosis?
Okay. Well, my family always called me the ultimate health nut, and honestly, they were surprised I was the one who would get breast cancer. So yeah, my nutrition stayed the same. Although during treatment, it is often hard to eat because you're nauseous, but I did the best I could on that.
Yeah, that is tough. Okay, here's another one. Here's the thing. Our people who watch the show, they have really good questions. And it's okay if they're out of your lane. I throw it out there, and if you know it, great. If you don't, then we'll just have to get one of our other specialists on here. Juan wants to know, could plasma-rich platelets transfusion help in hair loss post-breast cancer? That's a good one.
Boy, that is a great question. I don't know much research that's been done on that.
Okay, Sabrina?
If it's not a lymph node, I can't. That is
okay. Like I said, that is the good news. Bad news is that our experts deal very specifically with what they deal with. They know everything about what they deal with, so that's okay. We've got plenty to go to. We will get them on. Okay, so I want to ask. Jamie wanted to know from Cammie what feedback she's gotten from her book. You must be finding yourself connected and connecting with people you never thought you would. What has that experience been like?
Well, my husband and I didn't write the book to make money, and so we have been giving books away, and I'm on a metastatic breast cancer page and giving books away there at the KU Cancer Center, giving books away, and so any proceeds we get from the books, we want to buy more books and give away to those that might help. And so yes, my email address is on the back. I've gotten email from people who just found it on Amazon and bought it and wrote to me. So it's been great, and connecting with people who do breast cancer runs, and it's just been great.
Hair today, gone tomorrow. Cammie Crank. I just want to keep repeating her name and the name of the book so you can find it on Amazon. Georgianne, good morning, by the way. She watches our show daily, and she's gone through a similar experience. She said, and maybe you can give her some advice. She said, my hair loss from chemo, it grew back, but thinner, different texture, looks very different. She was taking some medication. It's been falling out, though, very noticeably, she says. Of course, it was originally very thick and long, just like yours was, I know. But she says it was her identity. She's a little embarrassed now. Has anybody? She was told it may not ever grow back. What are you hearing in the community of women that you've been in touch with, or just your own experience? What can you tell her about? Maybe some advice you have to keep her going and to raise her spirits in the hair department.
Well, yeah, my hair's never been the same, and of course I lost it a second time, and now the next treatment after the one I'm on now, when this one fails, is I'm probably going to lose it again, and so it's come back different every time. And of course, and I don't feel like I look like myself, and one thing I finally realized, I just look in the mirror and smile, and I'm like, okay, my best accessory now is the smile, and then that got so hard during COVID, because then we got the mask on. And it's like, I can't even smile, you know. But you just, I just realized there's things a lot worse than losing your hair, and to be able to be positive in spite of losing your.
It changed you. This has changed you
for the good.
You've gone deep for sure.
Yeah.
How great is it to be sitting here with her, by the way? When she said that just now, my best asset is my smile, and I can't agree more. But to have her sitting here with you today, what's that like?
It's amazing, and I'm always impressed by people like Cami and my patients, their adaptability, their perseverance in terms of breast cancer survivors and people that are going through breast cancer therapy. And I think one thing that, in speaking about the communities, and no breast cancer patient should ever feel alone. The communities are vast, and the resources are there. And so there are people in Kansas City, there are people nationally. Everybody wants to help. So if you feel like you're alone, reach out.
You are not alone. That's why you wrote the book, to say, I'm here, this is my story, and I want to be your support system. Another question from the community, from Erica, is just how are you doing today? What is your diagnosis today? Where are you in your treatments?
Okay. Well, a big shout out to my medical oncologist, Dr. Gregory Crane. I've had him since 2015, and he's couldn't be here today. I wish you all could meet him.
He wanted to be, I will tell you that, but he couldn't.
So we call him a brainiac, and he is constantly researching, and he's always has my next treatment lined up, because right now I'll be on treatment until either it fails with my tumors growing more, because now it's in my lungs and liver and peritoneal space, and or treatment fails, or I can't handle the treatment anymore. So right now I'm on a oral chemo, and then I also get injections once a month. So.
How are you physically feeling?
I feel well. My big thing is walking. I walk a lot and fast, and that's what keeps me going. So
just keep moving. I always think just that physical movement forward makes you feel like you're moving forward. I want to get to some final thoughts, and Sabrina, kind of final thoughts from you about what you want us to know, and just what it's like to be here reunited with Cami. Even though I know you guys see each other quite a bit.
We do. You know, I think as a healthcare provider, these relationships are just as important to us as they are the patient. There is so much that happens over the journey of these patients, and them sharing this with us gives us inspiration to continue to do better, find answers, find ways to make their journeys a little bit easier. So, you know, Cami is a wonderful patient. She's one of my very first ones, and whenever I know she's coming in, it brings such a smile to my face, not just because I'm seeing her in the professional sense, but just because of the wonderful individual she is. She's an inspiration for other patients. She's an inspiration for healthcare professionals. That's why we do what we do. So to be able to be here and share.
Doctor, your final thoughts today.
I would certainly echo what Sabrina said. And you know, one of the true joys of this job in being able to develop long-standing relationships with patients is to have a friend for that length of time. And so getting to know her and Bob and Meredith, her daughter, who's a nurse up at Mayo, and it's been a true treat. It really has been. And again, you know, I'm always impressed not only with the adaptability and the perseverance, but also the willingness to share and altruistically help other people that are going through this journey. And it's very touching and heartening.
These patients have such wonderful outlooks, and they're so inspirational. And it just really encourages, it's such a smile in the world.
It really is. And not everybody is in a place where they can share their stories.
That's
so when
right.
people are and can come forward and do it, it just it really means everything. Cami, your final thoughts today? Just I know one thing that you've said, and I wanted to ask you, because you said that we talk a lot about here about how faith and science work so well together. And it certainly worked that way in your case. How important was that, you know, just faith carrying you through to where you are today?
Oh, absolutely. Very important. And yeah, that's God's my rock. I also would like to just encourage people, get your mammograms. But it might take more than that. If you read my book, you'll see I'd never missed a mammogram. I'd gone in October 2014, January 2015, my husband found the lump. And also I want to say push for a biopsy, because I was not offered that, and then told to come back in a year. We went back sooner than that, and then found ourselves here at KU, and just so grateful.
And they did another scan, a deeper scan.
Yes, and then the immediate biopsy that day, and just I just want to encourage, go get a second opinion too. If you have doubts, just pursue it.
It's okay to ask questions.
Okay, yes.
It's okay to ask questions. Again, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow is Cammie's book. Thank you so much just for being a friend of our show. I know you watch us. And
I do.
That's how you reached out to us, and then before you knew it, we said, great, you're coming on too. So that's how that works. You reach out to us, and then now you're a guest, and you're a friend of ours. So thank you so much. Dr. Hawkinson, your final thoughts today.
Yeah, no, just a big a shout out and words of support and thoughts of support for all of our patients that are undergoing breast cancer, but also other conditions, and so much support for those medical teams and those physicians that we've seen today that help care for them. So.
All right, Doc Hawk, thank you so much, and thank you to all of our guests today. Thousands of people have a disease called aortic valve stenosis. It's when the blood flow is reduced from the heart to the rest of the parts of the body. Alexis Del Cid joins us now with a preview of today's episode of All Things Heart, coming up at 10 a.m. Alexis, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jess. You're about to meet a man who, like many of us, postponed a doctor's appointment or 2 or 3 during the pandemic. We all can relate to that. But for this man, who also happens to be an avid bicyclist, it led to a life-threatening problem with his heart.
I had stretched that out because of pandemic and hadn't gone, but I knew I wasn't feeling good. I knew that things weren't great. I was feeling tired and wasn't exercising as much and feeling exhausted, and when I did exercise, my legs felt heavy.
So when he finally went to the doctor, they discovered there was a huge problem with one of his heart valves. It's called aortic stenosis, and because so much time had been lost, doctors here had to work quickly to save him. Coming up at 10 a.m., you're going to hear from that patient, Sean Tiener. You'll hear from his doctors, and his surgeon explains what he needed to do to get Sean back to health, how to recognize the problem in you or your loved ones, and what is aortic stenosis. We'll tell you everything you need to know before it's too late. Bring your questions. We will see you at 10 a.m. for All Things Heart.
All right, we'll be watching, Alexis. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us today. Don't forget you can catch our updates anytime by logging back onto Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Go out, make it a great Thursday. We'll see you back here Friday at 8 a.m. Coming up tomorrow on the Morning Medical Update, we explore the power of a second opinion through the story of this young and vibrant breast cancer survivor. I'm Jessica Lovell. How her cancer diagnosis led her to the right treatment and down the dark road that comes along with this health fight. She opens up about her physical and mental health struggle along the way.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now everywhere podcasts are available.